And we are live. I feel like it's been a bit. We missed a week or two there. Uh, that was on me. I apologize. I was recovering from the COVID. Yeah, dude. Not gonna lie, it was unpleasant. It
Chosen.
was, and yeah. So I was just pretty beat. Not really feeling like talking. So here we are, a couple weeks later. But we are hopping back in, and I got my copy right here. Richest Man in Babylon. And we specifically wanted to talk about the 7 cures for a lean purse, correct?
Yeah.
All right. So I made sure, like, I was reading, and like you said, it's a very easy read, and I was flying through it. And then I stopped. Like, I didn't want to go too far ahead. So, like, I kind of I wanted this to be fresh. Then I got COVID, and I didn't read anything for like a week. And anyway, so I'm like a week out, so we're going to go back and forth. I got the copy with me right here just in case I need to reference. But these are the 7 cures for a lean purse, essentially laying out the groundworks for how you can stop spending money unnecessarily and essentially help yourself, no matter what your career, what your job, whatever, help yourself to grow, acquire, and accumulate wealth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
thought you were going to take it from there. But anyway.
It's super simple, but we'll go. I mean, let's just jump into the first cure.
So we'll just go point by point, right?
Yeah. I was going to ask you before that, like, what you thought about the beginning, like all the other stuff we talked about. But, I mean, it's this kind of covers.
Let's we can go into it a little bit. And so, like you said, it's a very easy read. It's laid out in almost like a story fashion. So it's not like you're just reading like information, which can get incredibly dull. Like there's characters, there's conversation, they have back and forth. So like it pulls you in a little bit. And to be honest, I'm super impressed considering this was first published in 1926. It holds up. Like that's amazing.
Yep.
I mean
by like, the foundation. This gives you everything. Like you don't go need to YouTube 100 YouTube videos about how to get out of a financial situation.
Yeah.
Like you don't need any of that. You don't need to understand the stock market. You don't need to understand any of that yet. You need this book and 150 pages it is, 180 pages or whatever, depending on how big your pages are. Like,
I was going to say, mine's like not even close to that.
Right. Mine's a quarter of your size. Pages. So like yours might be 100 pages. Like
I think it's like 76.
Okay. Exactly.
But
I mean, it's the foundation of everything, which I think is. I mean, it's just everything we talk about.
Yeah, so it's super simple. Like you can understand it. Like I would say that this is like you could give this to a high schooler and they'd understand this. Like it's not super complex. Mm-hmm. Anyone can pick this up and read this and understand it, which is obviously the main point. And then all it comes down to is just applying it.
Yep. Awesome. Or whatever you want to talk about first.
Yeah, no. So real quick, again, it kind of like lays out this groundwork between this character who's, kind of downtrodden, disheartened, we'll say, and just because he feels like, no matter how hard he works, whatever he does, he's not like accumulating the wealth that he wishes. So he goes ahead, him and a friend go and they ask, I think his name's Arcad or whatever, who is the wealthiest man in Babylon, hence the title of the book. And he lays out he tells a little story of, how he learned and what he had to do. And now so what it does now is it leads up into this, he breaks it up over like the course of a week. So 7 days, and he's going to do these 7 little lectures each day or each night. He goes, invite anyone, bring them here, bring them to me. I'll talk to anyone, everyone. It's free. Come listen. And each night I will talk about one of the 7 cures for a lean purse. The first one, let me pull that up, is, and I love how they speak because it's all like old Englishy. So the first cure, start thy purse to fattening.
I know. It's so amazing.
It's fantastic.
I love this one. I mean, they're all huge, but this is basically, we talked about before, 10% of all you earn is yours to keep, right?
Yes.
And he used the analogy, like if you had a basket and you put 10 eggs in it every day and you took out 9, what would happen? Eventually it'd be overflowing with eggs, and I wouldn't it's like, oh, well, that's literally it. You do that with your money. But there's a quote that I wrote down that I thought was super relevant to now and always, right? But two things. One, he talks about the truth is always simple. We've talked about that probably 100 times, right? The truth is always simple. But he says, because you have the ability to labor and earn, you have every advantage to succeed that I did to possess. And your stream flows according to your ability. That's huge in terms of this whole narrative that we want to tell everybody that, like, you're not on an even playing field, or you don't have the abilities that this person had. None of that matters. And he's being very frank and clear with that, because in the book, he had nothing, right? And so he talks about you're going to make as much as your abilities allow you to, which he circles back around in Cure 7 to talk about your abilities. But I think it's very important too with the whole lockdown, like, you have every ability that I did because you have the ability to labor and to earn. Well, when we lock a country down, you don't have that ability. That's been the big argument this whole time, right? It's like, I want the ability to also thrive. Like, up until then, you theoretically have. Do you want to work as hard or not? So I think that's huge. But go ahead. Tell me what you thought about that one.
No, I agree. And like you were saying, and I think that's the good point, is he was saying, like, it doesn't matter, where, what class you were born into, like where you were born, who your parents were. Like, yes, obviously some people have certain advantages, and that's not being denied. But it's saying that it doesn't matter whether you were born poor, born rich, black, white, whatever. As long as you have the ability to work and to provide yourself with some means of accumulating income and wealth, you have the tools necessary to make it
become wealthy.
To make it grow. And I think that's the important thing to take away, because it's true, because not everyone's born on an equal playing field. It's just not how life is.
But if you make $1 a day or 100, 0.1% of that is 10%. It's going to make a difference. Like, it's
exactly, and that's how it leads into that first point. Is it doesn't matter if your take home, like if you're making $1,000 a week or $10,000 a week. Take out that 10%, put it aside for you. That is yours to keep. And eventually, 10% of $1,000 is $100. So that first week, all right, it's only $100. Big whoop. All right. 2 weeks, it's 200. You go, 10 weeks. Now that's $1,000 you got there. All right. So
it's interesting that $1,000, and we'll get to this later, but just to kind of bring it up into there, is people are like, all right, well, it's only $1,000.
Yeah.
Well, if you invested $10,000 in Amazon when it first came out and you left it there, $10,000, that $10,000 would be worth $13 million right now.
Yeah.
$13 million. So if you had one, what's it worth? 1.5 million? 1,000? So and that will come later in the book. But the point is, don't negate and think that your $1,000 is useless.
But that's the point. And that's the point, is it's a start, right? And this was day or night one in the book. This is the start to, as he said, start thy purse to I love it. I fucking love that. Start thy purse to fattening.
People carrying purses around and stuff, dude, like fanny packs.
We need to bring that back. You just
keep saying that, dude.
Carry a satchel full of gold.
Cling. But I think this is something that I've found true, and I think if you implement these things, or if you already are, whatever. He talks about how he was not shorter than before. And he said, also, do coins come to me more easily than they did before? And the reason for that is, and he talks about it, but it gets glanced over. This is what we talked about, podcasts ago. When you're holding more money, it increases the feeling of that more money. Mm-hmm. And that is literally the law of attraction being at play, because you now understand that feeling, and more of it wants to come to that feeling. It's a very real thing. I see it. When I start implementing this, it couldn't be more true.
Yeah.
And everybody that I know that has implemented this says the same thing. And but you can't quantify it. Like, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
But it seems to be law. Like, I don't know how else to explain that.
No, because I don't necessarily know that there is like a definite explanation. I think it's just.
To me,
I think part of it is that like because maybe you're now implementing this, we'll call it a law or whatever. Maybe it's something that becomes more of a natural part of you. It probably has something to do like when I'm talking about like taking someone who's lived the sedentary lifestyle and transitioning into a more healthy, active lifestyle. Like I don't tell you, we're not doing 100 different things at once, and we're not changing everything. We're starting with one tiny little thing. Go to the gym twice a week.
Builds.
Exactly. Well, that's what I'm saying. So you start with that little of going to the gym twice a week. And all right, it's not a huge change, but it starts to build. And then you start seeing yourself improve in the gym a little bit. So maybe you go 3 days a week. Maybe you start making healthier choices food-wise and that kind of stuff. And then it starts to like accumulate. And then all of a sudden, maybe you're a year into this and you're just like, oh my God, like I lost 50 pounds and I feel great. Like, I think that's kind of like, there's no one way to describe it. It's just now you're implementing, this keep 10% for me, and you do that. And then it's just something that becomes a part of your life. And then, then you implement it into other areas of your life. And that's how, things start to just almost seem like they magically come your way, even though like it's not, it's how you're now living your life.
Correct. Which to me is, you described it how it's like not really magic, but more opportunities seem to come because of that, because you're acting in the proper manner. Like he talks about how like gold in the book, he talks about like how gold fleets through the hands of people who don't know how to possess it. And even people that acquire large sums at one time. Well, the lottery is a perfect example of that. Like it's some stupid percent of people that win the lottery become bankrupt because they never understood how to handle that first.
Yeah.
And then acquire it, right? They didn't understand the handlings of gold, as he would say. Mm-hmm. And so I think, and then that builds, right? So that momentum and feeling builds of what it's like to be wealthy, and you expect more of it, right? Mm-hmm. It's just like, you can equate it to anything. Someone who, let's pick a football player who's used to getting, a sack every game. Well, that momentum builds and the expectancy is coming, right? Or like, I'm used to making 10 sales a day, right?
Yeah.
Well, if I hear 15 no's, I realize I'm just closer to one yes because I know it's coming because it's become that point has changed. So it's that same thing. But then it's the exact same thing he talks about here, which I think is awesome. Is he says that basically it's a law that gold comes more easily to the person who saves 1/10 of what he earns. Just like gold, it's a law that gold avoids basically the person who puts no mind to saving.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just like when you squander it, so opportunities don't present themselves to you because you don't understand the handling of it, which makes sense.
Yeah.
So, anyways,
and I think another thing that I really liked is how, and this actually kind of transitions into the second cure. Was one of the questions brought up in the first night was, well, I need all my money for all my expenditures, like for food and blah, blah, blah. And this is where it leads into the second one, because the second cure is control thy expenditures. And as he said is, well, yes, if that's something you truly believe, if you believe that you need every dime that you make for all of your expenditures, then that's what's going to happen. Then you're going to spend all of your money because you believe that is true. He goes, set aside the 1/10. And you'll find 9/10 is plenty. In fact, you'll probably have more than enough when you start to narrow down what is a want and what is a need.
Right, desires and needs.
Exactly.
Necessities. They're very different. And I think that, that he talks about too, how 10% brings you substantial things in life. Like it brings you investments, it brings you homes, it brings you the way that we desire to live, right? The freedom, financial freedom. That's what 10% brings. The 90% basically brings instant gratifications, in necessities in that aspect. So like, which one do you want more of? Like, you want more clothes, which is the 90%, or do you want more investments? Like to buy you more clothes later, or to grow that wealth.
Yeah.
And that falls into that necessary expenses. But what I like, again, a level playing field. If you make $100 a week, your necessary expenses are very different than the person who makes 1,000 or 10,000. Like if I still put and that's where it's awesome. The more you earn, the more desires you can add back into your necessary expenses.
And that's the beautiful thing about like percentages is, like you said, whether you're making $100 a week or $10,000 a week, 10% is 10%, and you can set aside 10%. Now, obviously, if you're making $100 a week, 10% is $10. If you're making $10,000 a week, it's $1,000. But the 10% then allows you room to live. And that was actually, I forget what cure it was or where it was in the book. But he says, like, we're setting aside 10% because it's okay to spend some money and to enjoy life and buy something that you want, that you'll enjoy. Like it's life is only worth living if you're enjoying it. And if you're saving and pinching, because he makes a difference between someone who's, saving 10% and investing and all that kind of stuff, as opposed to someone who saves every little penny and barely scrapes by because they're saving everything. He goes, that person's not enjoying life. So it's a very nice balance of saving for yourself first, allowing yourself, the money for the needs, the necessary expenditures, and then having money left over to enjoy, basically, he says.
Right. And it's simple, and there's a lot I like in there, and I love simplicity. Like I want more ease in my life, more simplicity, right? And so, 90%. If I made $1,000 this week, now I have $900 to pay my necessary expenditures, whichever they may be, and then do fun things with the rest. And I don't have to feel ashamed or whatever because I know I did the right thing first, and now this is what I get to do with that 90%.
Yep.
And what I like is, let's say you had, when you first sat down to do your budget, you had 20 things you considered necessary expenditures. And then you sat down and you realized, well, it's only really 10. So now you have 10 things, and you wrote them all down. Let's just assume we wrote them down. So now you take those 10 and you push them to the side because they weren't necessary. Well, that 10 you just pushed to the side are a real good way to find some goals for yourself. Like if those are important to you, they can become the goals you work and write and things we've talked about every single day until you're making enough in that 90% that they can be reabsorbed into your necessary expenditures or desires, right? So I think it's an awesome way to help yourself find goals is to simply just go through your budget. And I love that he talks about this. The purpose of a budget is to help you build wealth. Everybody thinks the purpose of a budget is to make me, like in that guy in the book you were talking about, to make you spend less money, and to restrict you. But it has nothing to do with that. It's to build you wealth over time. And I think that's because everybody has a negative connotation towards budget.
Yeah.
Yeah. They hear it.
You roll your eyes. It's a conversation you don't want to have. But no, it's necessary, and like you said, it's supposed to help you.
Right. Build wealth.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, anything else on that one? I think we're on 3.
I think that's pretty good for 2, right? So again, it's just essentially narrowing down necessary expenditures, differentiating between needs and wants. And like I said, there's no reason why you can't. What's up?
Which takes a lot of honesty with yourself.
Oh, it does. Of course it does.
How many people are putting pedicures on a credit card every month? Well, man, that $30 plus $5 tip pedicure is turning into a $78 pedicure 2 months from now at 30% interest.
Shit.
You can't I need them.
Do you?
You be very honest with yourself. It's so yeah. I mean, it's important. So yeah.
So moving into the third cure, make thy gold multiply. This one I liked a lot because he told that story of when I forget the names, but the gist of the story was he gave money to a brickmaker to buy gems overseas, and then it ended up being a bad investment and he lost it. So the great part again is the moral of the story, because the whole point is that yes, you want to take that 10% that you've saved for yourself, and you want to make it multiply. You want to make it work for you. That being said, you can't be an idiot about it. Like he says, you're not gonna give your money.
Cousin Joey.
Yeah, you're not gonna give it to a brickmaker to buy gems. What the hell does a brickmaker know about gems? He goes, you wouldn't, go to a farmer for I don't know,
astrology. I think.
Yeah, you wouldn't go to astrologists for crops or whatever.
Yeah,
it was just like invest your money with people in what you know and with people who know what they're doing. Don't go to cousin Joey who's got a guy who knows like something about something and whatever. Don't necessarily rely on the next Reddit bombardment of hedge funds and bumping up GameStop.
But I'm so happy that happened.
It's so funny. It's so
good for them.
Yeah, that's awesome.
It's awesome. But I like this one because he hammers home. It's something I have to always remind myself is that no investment is 100% safe.
Okay.
But you have to weigh your principal that you put in. Say you put $1,000 in an investment. How likely is it that I'll be able to get that back and quickly if I needed to, right? So you have to weigh the pros and cons of that and what that looks like. And so I have started to do some different things. I am not a financial advisor. So I don't know if we need to say that.
We should probably clarify that. Neither of us are financial advisors. We read a book.
We read a book. And it's a really good book. And
it is. I recommend everybody read
it. Definitely. But I'm in the process now with playing with percentages and how I want to invest in the stock market and all these kinds of things, right? So we would both agree that your principal is the safest in the S&P 500. Fine. I put a certain percentage of my money in that, right? But then I like to invest in individual stocks that I believe I've researched that are going to do well and whatever. So I have this kind of a system where, and it's really hard to do, I'm finding, because you get greedy.
Yeah.
That let's say I buy a stock for $20, and then in 6 months from now it's trading at 40. Let's say I bought 10 of those, right? I am following the principles of this book, and this is how I'm doing it, is I will then sell 5 of those shares because that's my principle.
Okay.
$100 back, right? Then I'll take that $100 and I'll put it in the S&P 500. And then I'm ready to let the rest ride. Does that make sense? Like, but
yeah. So you're letting it grow. You're retrieving, basically your initial investment, saving that, and then the rest is almost, not to say it's play money, but it's like play money because it wasn't really yours to begin with, and now it's just like, okay, I can kind of roll the dice on this.
Right, and as long as the company doesn't go bankrupt, I win.
Yeah.
I mean, theoretically, unless that happens and it trades at $0, even if it went down to 10, it's still up. Yeah. And so that's where I'm at now. And that is not where I will stay forever. I will change my mindset on that. And per stock, I will change my mindset on that. Like, if everything I'm reading is like, it's just the tip of the iceberg, it's good. Well, then maybe I'll change my mind at that given juncture. And or there's a little percentage on ones that I'll put like, I don't know, a couple bucks on one that's super volatile that I know. But that's kind of my percentage of play money. So even if it did double, I might just leave it. Because I'm like, well, that's, $50 that I always just like, let's see what happens. If it hits big, I'll make $1,000. If it doesn't, whatever. That's my version of, and I don't gamble. Well, I guess you could call that gambling, but I don't go to a casino.
Yeah,
that's my version.
I would say it's different.
On a blackjack. It is different, but that's my version of putting $50 on a blackjack.
Like I can read all the blackjack books I want. It's not gonna it's not going to make my advantage any better because it's still luck.
Correct.
So
Right. But you get what I'm saying. Is there's
I do.
like a certain one or two that I'm like, I'm going to put $10 every month into that one because
Yeah. See what happens.
you know, yeah, see how it works.
Yeah.
And so, anyways,
No, so the point he was driving home, right? Make thy gold multiply. Was it's not just enough to just save and let it sit there because then it's not doing anything. Yeah, you're gonna accumulate your 10%. It's gonna grow, but that's not enough, right? So that's why it's finding prudent investments, right? And being smart about them and educating yourself on them, and using people who know what you're not gonna go to an astrologist for bread making or whatever. Like you're gonna go to a baker.
and he really drives home that you should be able to get your principal back secure.
Yes.
Like not make risky investments. And he says in there something like, don't get, I don't know what, mesmerized by quick, I don't know, something like that. Like don't get something by quick returns or high returns.
Well, yeah. I mean, there's always the this is a different thing. It was actually the video you sent me this morning, but like those who try to get rich quick remain poor. That's not the point of this book. This book is
Right.
not to get you rich quick. It's to teach you principles to grow wealth and that's the point, from whatever job or career you have. Now, again, the big thing that he drives home is reinvesting. So you make your money work for you. You grow, make thy gold multiply. So you invest, and then the returns you get from the investing, you make those, how he calls them, make your little like gold slaves for you, right? So and then make the coppers work for you, and make the pennies work for you. Make it all counts, right? So it's not like, oh, okay, well I invested. Exactly. I invested, my $100. I doubled up. I got 200. All right. Well, now I'm just going to sit on 200. No, reinvest the 200. Make it 400. Make it 800. Make it 1600. So that was really the point that he was trying to drive home: is don't just let your money sit, because then it's really no good. If it's just sitting there, it's worthless, right? If you're not spending it, it's not growing, it's not doing anything. Then if it's not doing anything, it's worthless. So make it grow, make it work for you. Do you have any more on that one, or feeling pretty good about it?
No, I think it's awesome. I mean, that's awesome. It's all compounding interest. And I think the one, I was just looking real quick, the one other thing he talks about is you want multiple streams of income coming in, but that happens the same way savings happens. One, and then that one turns to two, and then that two turns to three, and then three turns to four, and they add up. Like, let's just say, just because it's relevant to what we.
Well, it's the same. It's the same riddle that I think everyone's probably always heard. So, have you ever heard like the riddle, like, it's not necessarily a riddle, but it's just like, if I like, would you accept, like, if I gave you a penny and then doubled it every day, like, is that something you'd want? And most people are just like, oh, it's a penny, like that's worthless. Like, no, like it's not worth it. What happens is at the end of the month,
I'm in.
Exactly. What happens is within 30 days, that penny turns into like $1 million, right? Because it's the first day it's 1 penny, the second day it's 2 pennies, the next day it's 4, then it's 8, then 16, and then, like you said, this whole compounding interest factor. By I don't know if it's actually 30 days, but it's by like the end of like 30 or 60 days, it's like $1 million. Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's the point. So I forget where I was going with this, but you said something and it triggered that that little story in my head.
Multiple streams of income. Because, like I was saying, how just because it's pertinent to us right now, but okay, I have a chiropractic office. We're doing some things together. That could be stream number 2. And then let's just say you simply put, I don't know, $100 a month into a dividend account that pays 5% dividend.
Yeah.
Well, that's another stream of income, even though it's small right now.
It all counts.
That's 3 streams of income coming in. That's huge over the course of time. That's the literally perfect analogy with what you just said, because it all counts.
Yeah.
Like someone will be like, oh, it's a 5% dividend or 3% dividend. I'm not interested in putting it in there. I am. Because there's nothing on the plan. There's no other place you're going to put your money that's going to give you $3 for putting it there if you put $1,000 in.
Yeah.
Like, here's $1,000 for your company. Oh, I'm going to give you $3. Here you go. Like, that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
You
no one does that. Yeah.
The bank doesn't do that. The bank's like, oh, cool.
No, and this is actually another thing that I found interesting that I read or heard or whatever is you actually end up losing money when you put it in a savings account because of inflation. So how I can best describe that is, let's say you put $20,000 in a savings account 10 years ago. 10 years ago, $20,000 could probably buy you a house. I'm exaggerating, but like, dollars 10 years ago could buy you much more than $20,000 could buy you now.
1960, it could have bought you a house.
Yeah, believe it or not, it's not even like that. Yeah, it's more like 70 or 80. Like it's not that long ago.
Not that far ago.
$20,000 could like buy you a house.
For sure.
And that's something that people don't realize is, yes, all right, I have $20,000. It's sitting there in the bank. It's safe. It's not going anywhere. I'm not going to lose it. However, 10 years later, that $20,000 is not the same $20,000. Everything inflates. Everything's more expensive. And you actually end up losing value over the course of that 10 years.
Your interest rate on that bank account is not equal to inflation.
Because you probably made like $1 in the 10 years of $20,000 sitting there. As opposed to, like you said, the dividends that are paid from some stocks. So I use Robinhood. I feel like that might be a bad thing right now, but hey, so far,
I won't be anymore as of tonight.
So far, so good. But what happens is, every now and then, I pretty much exclusively invest in stocks that pay me dividends because I want something in return. Every now and then, I'll like get a notification like, "Oh, you got $10 from this dividend." A couple months later, "Oh, you got $30 from this dividend." Oh, all right, great. Again, it doesn't seem like much, but over the course of the year, we just started a new year, and at the end of the year, Robinhood gives you a breakdown of everything that you did and what happened. I actually got a couple $100 in dividends. Again, it was over the course of a year, is a couple $100. It's not like the greatest thing in the world, but it's a couple $100 that I didn't have. It didn't have at the beginning of the year, and I wouldn't have had if I just put that money in a savings account in the bank.
Correct. And say it's $500. Well, maybe that's 2 months of a car payment.
Yeah.
So November, December's car payments you made just from not putting the money in the bank account.
Yeah, just from letting it sit somewhere else.
Yep, just literally letting it sit somewhere else. Like, I mean, it's awesome.
Yeah. So that was the main point of Cure 3, which was the make thy, what was it? I want to get it right. Make thy gold multiply.
Yeah, I love it.
All right. So moving on to Cure 4. Guard thy treasures from loss. And this kind of also ties into the, making the prudent investments, not giving your money, to Uncle Joey, who's knows a guy who's, fighter's going to take a dive or something like that. Right? Like, you got some more notes on that one?
That's it. Yeah.
It was a quick one.
Uncle Joey, you thought he said round 4, but he actually meant 5, and he took a dive in the wrong round. Like, no, that's basically it. This is the one where I think he talks about your keeping your principles as safe as you possibly can and consulting.
Yeah, so I'll actually read the second paragraph here. It's every owner of gold is tempted by opportunities whereby it would seem that he could make large sums by its investment in most plausible projects. Often, friends and relatives are eagerly entering such investments and urge him to follow. So he's just saying, like, yes, obviously, Cure 3 was to, make your gold multiply, find investments, make it work, make it grow. Step 4 is just like, all right, that's all well and good. Don't be an idiot about it.
Yep.
Yeah. So that was actually a relatively quick cure, because that's basically the gist of it is don't be stupid.
Yep. I like it.
You got anything else, or are you pretty good with that one?
No, we pretty much talked about.
Yeah, that's basically it. All right.
Well, that's kind of what I like about this, and you'll see. So
yeah, like you said, it's a very simple book.
So simple. And you'll see as we go through we probably, I don't remember, maybe one or two more podcasts to finish the whole book because stuff starts to, repeat itself.
Yeah.
I know that we'll get into paying off debts. That'll probably be what we talk about next week. But he repeats himself because truth is simple and it works. Like, it works. So I feel like he repeats himself to drive it home in as many ways as possible. Like, this works. See? And again, just simplicity. And I love simplicity. I don't know about everybody else, but I don't have time to figure out complex investing strategies. Like,
I don't want to. It's just
no,
I need it to be as simple as possible, and that's why we've talked about this at length and multiple times. That's why the biggest draw for me with investing, and I did the individual stocks for a bit, and I made some money, and I lost some money, and whatever. However, to me, the ETFs were the route for me because it automatically distributes your money. You're basically distributed over 500 the 500 biggest companies in the S&P 500, hence 500, and I can just leave it there. And whether it fluctuates a little bit here and it was a down day, I'm still up 20% on the year, which is a fantastic year. That's just kind of my route. I can kind of set it and forget it and let it do its thing over there, as opposed to having to constantly worry and manage and think about, all right, well, I got to get in at this time and out at this time and blah blah blah. So yeah, man, simplicity is lovely. It's fantastic.
No, it's the best. And I would say the vast majority. So I do, just so everybody knows, I do a big percentage of mine is in ETFs because, again, set it and forget it. Like, I don't have time to manage 40 stocks. Like, what am I going to do? I don't have time for that, But the ones I do buy are ones that I will hold, like Warren Buffett, for a long time, for the most part, except for a couple that I'm maybe just like, I'm just going to see what happens with this one,
Yeah.
But it's kind of a set it and forget it thing too. Like if people read about him, like he would find companies that,
You right? You there? I lose you? Racco? Come back, Racco. Oh, that's a shame. All right, let me. All right, let me see what we can do here. That's a bummer. Maybe we can finish next week. Hang on, he's trying to hop back in. Never mind. All right, it looks like Rocco's internet crapped out. So, yeah. So we went through 4. We could finish up the last 3 next week. It wasn't bad doing a quick one. Quick one to ease back in. All right. So, good night, everybody.